Hello everybody, my name is Alexander Wong and I'm with Millennium Interstate Realty and welcome back to this week's weekly business spotlight. This week I am with Michael Husbands, an owner of Clarity Wealth Accounting Group LLC, and today we're going to talk about his journey and what made him pursue this career. So overall, I don't even know if you can give a little bit of insight to yourself, introduce yourself.
Yes, as Alex said, my name is Michael Husbands. I'm one of the owners of Clarity Wealth Accounting Group. And my journey began back in, I believe, 1975, 76, when I migrated to this country and I was thinking about going to college to do either pharmaceutical or medical. And I wasn't quite ready because my mom was a domestic servant and I couldn't see her paying for me to go to New York University and for 4, 5, 6 years of medical or pharmaceutical training. So I looked at my background, my thoughts, and I said, accounting looks like a place I would like to be, and I started taking a home course from it was LaSalle University back then, and then I got to the point where you know what I'd rather be in a college environment, interacting with other people, and professors rather than staying home and doing work and submitting and waiting for a response. So I went to college and got myself my associate's and bachelor's degree in accounting, and I was working for accounting firms. Back then, when I graduated from Pace University, I went to a KPMG, which back then was Pete Mark Mitchell, one of the big eights back then. And during that time frame, I thought about having my own business. In fact, one of the interesting things that occurred was while I was in college and they interviewed me for a position in their company, they asked me where do I see myself in 5 years' time, and I said I having my own accounting practice. I thought that didn't necessarily what they wanted to hear at that point, but I still got hired by them to do my beginning accounting profession as such. So fast forward, as time went by, I felt I liked the idea of being able to work directly with clients. I was in a position when I was working with them and other smaller accounting firms or CPA firms, they would give me a file, I would work on it, give it to the manager, review it, and make the changes, and didn't know what happened after that. I don't know what information was passed on to the client. It was no interaction, and I felt that I would rather have that interaction. So as times went by, I kept looking, I would prefer to have my own way of doing things, and at that point in time, I said, I would rather branch out and have my own practice. And as I said, when I was in college, I wanted that in the first place. So that is why I end up going in that direction and developing clients over the years, and here I am.
That's awesome. So the relationships and connections and people you meet is something that's very important to you.
Oh yes, over the years I've met many different people and diverse people who bought into what I was trying to accomplish, and they were able to refer clients to me over the years. So I was able to establish and build a practice over the years, and it got to the point where I was able to hire individuals to work and grow the business step by step in a way. And through a number of different iterations, here I am with this firm that we just merged a couple of years ago to try to grow and become a larger firm and provide services to our clients. Right now, we're focusing more along the lines of the advisory component of the of accounting profession, where yes, we do the basic stuff like income tax preparation, bookkeeping, payroll taxes, and such. But we were focusing more these days on trying to advise our clients to be more successful in the business as well as the financial lives where possible.
And that's excellent. So
Thank you.
from your journey, you kind of had this all planned out from the beginning.
In a sense, because obviously back then it was not the advisory component, it was more of the compliance, which means you do the tax return. Yes, I thought about my interaction with clients, but that took time to learn the profession and see what advice I can give them. But it wasn't along the lines of where we are now, where there's more and more advisory service being seen as an important component of having a successful and um, practical, well, not practical, successful business where we're doing more than some person comes in, drop in the paperwork and say, let's see the results, and you give it back to them and say, here's the results. See you next year if you like. It is sitting down with them and going through what we've done, explaining to them so they have a better understanding of what a financial report means, what the numbers mean, so that if they have a better understanding from the standpoint of what a balance sheet is all about, what an income statement is about, and then once they have that understanding, because a big component of what we do is try to educate our clients as well. We want them to understand that at the end of the day, they need to be involved and interactive with us regarding their tax returns and the business bookkeeping, the business reports, so that they have an understanding where they make informed decisions. It's not a matter of, I've done it, you got a report, and then you don't know what it means. You go to the bank and you want to get a loan, and you can't tell them and explain to them what your balance sheet or what your P&L means to you. How is it growing? Is it better than it was last year? How strong are you financially? So those things become more and more important. And as we have in our tagline, is we're using that as a building block to help you become more successful and financially better off than you were as time goes by.
I think that's amazing too, because certainly nowadays, especially with the internet, there's a lot of disconnect and everything with some of the value and connections with people. I know the school system after COVID kind of varies and changes on terms of the curriculum, so it's very important, especially the financial aspect of it and learning all these different steps and scenarios that younger people might not be familiar with. And as generations come on, it's very, very important for them to know. So it's an amazing value that you have to be able to sit down and explain to them and show them, rather than here's your job, get out of here type of thing.
Maybe see you next. Thanks for the payment. Maybe we'll see you next year. And then the client walks on, they hear something from some person out there, and they buy into it, and then they come back at some point. We say, no, what you've heard is not totally incorrect, but they've given you snippets of what you need to do. You need to understand, because you need to be informed. And what I find more and more so, which I've known over the years, is that there is a wide breadth and depth to the accounting profession. And most people may think about us as green shades and stodgy old people who don't know anything other than numbers. But we offer a wealth of options and information that would enhance and help a business grow and develop, and help people fully better understand all these different tax laws. Even the accounting profession, you think that it's just debits and credits and numbers. And I had, well, not a take back, but I've had I heard someone say the other day, "Oh, you're good at numbers," and being good at numbers is good, but the accounting profession is more about the understanding of what is the practical application of accounting. The theoretical application, the knowledge, is not a matter of simply saying 1 + 1 is 2. If you don't understand the concepts of accounting, you don't understand what your reports are telling you. And there's a wide scope that goes along with that. So we don't expect people to get a full understanding of what the accounting principles are, but we try to give them some of the stepping stones and some of the building blocks to have a better understanding what it entails, as opposed to, I went to my accountant and they gave me a report, or they did my taxes and I don't know what's going on. When someone comes in here, we first take a look at their taxes and explain to them the things that we see that are out of whack, that makes no sense to us. We ask the question, were you aware of this? Do you understand what this means? And a lot of times people say, I don't know, that's what my accountant put on my tax return, or this is what my bookkeeper did. And then we have to explain to them why we have a concern about what we're seeing, and explain to them, this is something that you cannot defend. We do not do that. If we cannot defend that number, we will not put it on the tax return. If you don't have any supporting evidence for that, we can't help you. It's not we're trying to be saints, but by the same token, every single number in that report, we have to be able to explain. We have to be able to back it up and say, yes, here's where we got it from. And if and when it gets audited, the first thing a person is going to say, well, we hired Clarity and Wealth to do our books. We hired Clarity and Wealth to do our tax return. We relied on their expertise to do these things. That's what they gave me. Well, we want you to understand that, so that if there's a question, you can't answer it, then you send it to us and we'll try to answer it. But it can't be, well, I don't know, that's what they did, and I didn't know it was wrong.
So. And as I said before, I think that's an incredible value to have, because it's the reason why you'll build that rapport, right?
Yes.
Even in the long run, you're always gonna far outpace, those other people who try to cut corners or don't do it with the passion and the emphasis that they put on the work, because it's not just simply another day in the office, right? It's actually looking forward to, how can I help such and such, or how
That's
can I
correct.
better this situation, just to continually evolve. And
That's
I
correct.
know even he helped me form my first business, and that was, I was young. I didn't really know, I don't understand anything, and
Right.
you can break it down even to that level to where they
correct.
will understand that.
And that's a big part of what our goal is, to be able to have them understand that, because we do care, and it's not about how much money that we make, but at the end of the day, we want our clients to walk away saying, we went to Clarity and Wealth and they explained, and I understand better, or when I walked out of their office, I had a sense of relief because I know that they're going to take care of what they said they were going to do. We're not perfect, and we make mistakes. But when we do make these mistakes, we try to go back and correct them as quickly as possible and let the client know, look, we made a mistake, and we are take responsibility for our mistakes. We'll fix them. There's no additional fee. If we made a mistake, that's our responsibility. If it caused a penalty and interest, then guess what? We have to bear that responsibility because it was our mistake. So we care enough about our clients to make sure that when they walk out of here, they are less burdened than when they came in.
That's great. Now, I know you mentioned to me before that as of 2 years ago, you've moved into this office space here in Piscataway. Were you a part of that decision in making the change to move here?
Yes. What had happened, and this is not something that I delve much into, but what had happened in 2018, I had a kidney transplant, and I had 5 years of dialysis. So I had closed my office from before and worked from home while I was going through that process. And once I had the kidney transplant, I got my energy level back up, and I opened back a small office. And we were growing pretty rapidly at that point, and we got to a point where we were busting at the seams. So it's like, yes, we're looking to grow more and more, and we need to find a larger space to work from. Even though COVID was going on at that time, fortunately, we were fortunate enough where we didn't have to close our office. We had the protocol in place to protect ourselves and our clients, but we never actually had to close our office. So we constantly were doing stuff, and we kept growing, and it came to a point where we felt that we needed to expand and look for a larger office. So I merged with my partner, her name is Miss Rodriguez, Tabitha Rodriguez. We formed this entity, and we decided, she did the legwork, came across this office space, and we said, yes, we're going to do this and move forward. And this is where we are.
Awesome. And was there any specific backstory to choosing this spot to be your main office?
Not really. During the time period when I was working from at home, there was a shared office space in this building, so I was aware of it. But when I was looking for a larger space, they had the space that they were looking to offer was more than I wanted to, and I wanted maybe about 1,200 square feet. The minimum was about 15 to 2,000 square feet, and I wasn't ready at that point to do that. So when she started doing her research and her legwork, at that point in time, she came across that they were building out the third floor here. At that time, they were not. So we found this space, and a call was, yes or no, we're going to do this space. This is how much space it is, yes or no. I said, yes, we're ready to make that move. And here we are.
That's great. Well, now, what are some of your favorite things about this area in general?
Well, I enjoy being in Piscataway. I've had offices up and down this corridor that I moved around over the years because I've been doing this since 1993 full time. So I've had different offices around this area and like this central corridor. So I enjoy this. It's a nice building. It's accessible. One of the things I always look to make sure is that our clients have easy access in and out of where we are. So I don't like to be in a position where it's going to be difficult for them to drive out, not have enough space to park, and be difficult to come in or leave. So this place is quite accessible. 287 is right down the road. Piscataway Central. You can hop on to 287. You can go to Route 1, Route 18. So there's a myriad of access around here that you can maneuver and get around pretty quickly and pretty easily for the most part.
I have to back you up on that too, because that is 100% true. Because you have now this is like a big office area. I know there's a ton of buildings nearby that primarily are for businesses, but as you said, it's right near 287. Things too, even when you right before you come in here, you have that U-turn as well that you can make. So
That's correct.
that helps as well, rather than going all the way down, taking a jug handle and coming back. So
Right.
that's very nice.
Right.
Now, what were some of your biggest, or what is your biggest surprise that you faced as a business owner throughout your time?
I I guess when you say surprise, in what context are you referring to? Because surprises can come in very different forms and shapes.
Right. It could be good or bad,
Yes.
whatever you want to choose.
Um,
Maybe like, for example, wow, I didn't expect it to be like this, or like I expected it to be easier. Either one of those examples.
well, knowing how this profession works, there was never going to be anything easy about it. As I explained to you a little bit earlier, there's one thing that I learned in life is that not to get too excited because we got a new client or a larger client or deflated because we lost a client. I would say maybe I guess not really a surprise because being in the profession and keeping my ear and my eyes open, knowing that how people view this profession and how they deal with accountants, where they're more prone to go pay a lawyer because they're afraid a lawyer would sue them or whatever, and they look at sometimes an accountant like, oh, he can wait, they can wait, and I guess the biggest for me maybe the lack of commitment that people make to getting stuff done in a sense where they'll get a pinch. They get a notice from the Internal Revenue Service, and they'll call up and say, hey, I got a notice from the Internal Revenue Service. I like to sit down, have an appointment, and do this. And so you schedule an appointment or you schedule time, or you take a look at it, and for some reason, they might say, well, today I don't feel that pinch is not as hard as it was yesterday. So you know what? I'll put it aside.
Really?
And then time goes by, and it's like, where are you going? Are you ready to move forward? And then, because it's happened many times where it's like, oh, it's okay. It's like, so in that sense, I guess people not following through enough to take care of those little things that become a larger issue as time goes by, and not willing to handle them. Because I remember the first time that it occurred in my business, person is like, I did nothing wrong. I don't owe them anything, but I'm not communicating with them. And when it got to a large deal, it's like, well, I just didn't think it was that big of a deal. And it's like, well, yes, it was. If you don't respond to them, then they're going to presume that you're not taking care of it. And it just mushrooms into something larger than necessarily has to be.
Yeah, and that's especially because I'm in the marketing niche, so there's a lot of things that go beyond what takes place, essentially. As you mentioned, like, let's say if you call in business and they don't answer, or your business doesn't answer, like, oh, maybe they're this and this, or maybe they're not so good, right? So even those small decisions and everything could actually end up being a big play.
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Now, in terms of, I know you're kind of on the rise, but what opportunities do you see for any potential growth or expansion or continuing at the pace you're going right now for the future?
There's always room. In fact, I had this conversation with my partner yesterday where, yes, there might be a recession going on, or there might be thoughts of a recession, but as you can see, more and more people are starting new businesses. And with that comes the opportunity to be able to provide services for more and more of these people. Sometimes the toughest part is for those people who are starting out a business to understand you don't have to hire an accountant day one, but at least take the time to speak to a professional to see what they can do for you when you get to the point where you need it. Because a lot of times you get started and then at the end of the year you realize, wait a minute, I've made $100,000. I owe $30,000, $40,000 in taxes. I'm not ready for that. And now you'll want to say, what can you do for me? Well, we're not co-conspirators. We're not here to say to you, well, you can do this and do that, and that's incorrect. No, if you haven't done it by December 31st, there's a very few opportunities that we can save you stuff after after December 31st. So the stuff that needed to be put in place last year, the opportunity may have passed. So now we have to look at dealing with the current year coming and going forward. So we find that if you're starting out a business, forming a business, choosing the right entity structure, choosing the right tax structure becomes important. You need to have those things in place, proper segregation of your personal from your business. A lot of times it's too easy to commingle and not realizing that when it comes to an audit, and this is one of the things that we try to have clients understand, it's not that you necessarily would get audited. The probability is small, but if you start out right, you will always continue on a better path other than, well, I used to do that and I've always done that this way and nothing ever happened. There's a saying in life is what doesn't happen in a year can happen in a day. So because you didn't experience that before doesn't mean it can't happen. So we try to get clients to understand that from the very beginning, separate your personal from your business, meaning that you start a business, have a separate bank account so that you show that this is related to the business only. Sometimes, yes, it will have crossover, but you try to minimize that. And a lot of times it becomes an issue when you go to a professional and now they have to separate all your personal and pull your personal out. You'll think, well, I did 10 transactions for my business. Why does it cost me so much to fee for the services? Well, if you have 1,000 transactions that are personal, they have to look at those transactions and determine or ask you, what is this for?
Right.
And if you
they don't know.
We don't know. That's correct. So if you don't separate and say, hey, this is business, and say, here's my credit card statement, here's my bank statement, I've identified what is business, so therefore you only focus on that. But if you give them the bank statement, I have all these transactions, and then you wonder, well, I only had 10 business transactions. Well, I have to go through all of those because this is what you present, and this is what you're going to present to the auditor if you get audited, and they're going to look at all these transactions and they're going to ask you to pull them apart because it's part of your books of records for your business. So,
and especially having that priority to teach these people, as we said before, and to prepare them as well, because a lot of people, that's a very good comment you made on always kind of have the idea and be ready, because one day it could go from 0 to 100 really quick, and
easy.
For the people who prepared for that or were set up, they're going to be far better off than being, I guess, lackadaisy and last minute, like, oh my gosh, into this huge panic.
Right.
Because then that throws off all your senses, essentially.
Absolutely. It becomes very difficult to defend and be able to pull it apart because they can use different ways and means of being able to track what you've done. They have access to tools and software that would do a deep analysis of what's going on. Even though you think that you've covered yourself, they can look at your banking transactions and pull out certain things. And then there's also the test of your lifestyle. And one of the things that they are always concerned is, yes, you bought a car or you bought a Lamborghini to use to your business, and you think, well, I'm using this Lamborghini for my business. Well, the question becomes, yes, you can buy the Lamborghini and use it for your business, but the question that they're going to ask you, is it necessary for you to use a Lamborghini to run this business? And you would say, well, yes, I got to do this. Well, they can test and say, no. You can buy a Honda Civic and it will serve the same purpose, because now you're taking this expensive vehicle to get a larger deduction. And one of the things that they're always concerned about, tax evasion and stuff like that. So why do you think you need a Lamborghini to run this business so you end up with always losses? And so that is what they're concerned about as well. It's neither right nor wrong. It's just that's the tax law that they've done. We don't necessarily agree with it, but
it's what you have to follow.
That's what we have to deal with.
Yep.
And it's spelled out so that you know, so you can say, well, I went to the dealer and the dealer said I can do this, I can do that. Well, is the dealer well versed in tax law? They didn't know the nuances of these things, and
they're not.
They're not. And so they can tell you, and we have to look at that and say, why do you sell or tell someone this information that is half true? Yes, you can have the deduction, but most of the time you're just trying to make a sale. So when they come to us, we got to say to you yes and no. I mean, what do you mean yes and no? Well, yes, you can take the deduction, but is the business owner of that vehicle? And if the answer is no, then it doesn't work.
Right.
You can deduct the mileage, but the business has no responsibility for that vehicle, and that's your personal vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all these little things that come into play, and so the breadth of what we have to do and the scope of what we have to do can simply keep expanding as we interact with a client.
What's your secret to memorizing all this? I know that's what people out there are probably thinking.
It's not memorizing it per se, it's experience and being able to always reading and seeing what's going on. And you read and you experience and you get exposed. Repetition. And then we do our own research. We hear some things like, okay, let me just double check because things change constantly.
Of course.
So let me double check at this and say, okay, wait a minute. We've heard it so many times. It's like we know so much by the back of our hands. Like, no, we know. We're gonna hear this. You see it on the YouTube. You hear this, and it's like, nope. I have one of our clients over the years. Every time we come across something, it's like, Michael, I got this YouTube video from such and such. What do you think about it? Yes, part of it is true, but it's not complete.
No, yes, that's definitely what I've seen with a lot of those TikToks or Instagram Reels they may see. They're always like, oh, you want to do this, get a LLC for your car registered in Montana or whatever, pay no fee, and just a bunch of,
Yeah.
like a picture, right? But there's a lot more that goes on behind it
That's
than
correct.
keeping it simple like that,
Right.
essentially.
Right, and the nuances makes a big difference. And then sometimes people, well, how come you didn't tell us about that? Well, it's not that we can't tell you every single bit of information. Sometimes you as the client can come to us and say, I heard this, what about this, what about that? And then you to say to us, well, why didn't you tell me about this? Well, we can't, as I said before, we can't tell you every single thing because when will we be able to get to do our job or do our work? Sit down here and explain to you 1,000, 100,000 options or different scenarios that you would not remember once you walk out the door because your mind is so clouded with information. No, there's some things that you have to be able to say, you know what? I heard about this, how does it apply to me? I'm thinking about this, what do you think? Then we can use our knowledge and our experience and say, here's what your options are, so on and so forth. But to say this to us, oh, why didn't you tell me this? Well, we were not necessarily aware that this was something that you were considering. We're here as your advisor, reaching out to us and telling us what you're thinking is part of what we look to do. But we can't read your mind.
Yeah,
we're good,
never
but
do that.
we're good, but we're not that good. So yes.
Awesome. Now, just to kind of wrap things up here, I'm just curious, what would be a key piece of advice that you would give out to people who want to achieve their goals, become an accountant, or start their own business?
Well, one of the things is self-belief, perseverance, commitment, and don't let any person tell you or limit you beyond your capability and capacity. You're the one who set that height, that destination, and that route. You can hear them and listen and take advice, but if you have your mind set and doing the right thing and doing something that is beneficial to society, because we can always choose to go in a different direction than do something that's illegal or hurtful. But if you're taking a path to do something that's betterment of society, stick with it. Commit yourself to doing it and do it the best. Don't aim for 75. We grew up in a society where 100 was what you aimed for, because if you drop to 90, 95, you're still well up above. If you aim for 75 and you get 74, and 75 is a passing mark, did you pass? But I only need 75. Well, if you study for 75 and you miss it by half a point, they're not going to say to you, well, here's the extra point. But you study for 75, you get 74 and a half. Sorry, start over again. So if you aim for 100 and you fall below 100, you're still way above 75.
100%. I think
So,
that's very important, as
yeah.
you said, perseverance and commitment. Because I like to at least statistically think about it, right? For example, if you start your own business and keep going at it for 3 months, you're like, dang, I don't know if this is working. 6 months, 9 months go by. And slowly, let's say 12 months, 15 months, 18 months, like, okay, this started to pick up. Those people who gave out at 3, 6, and 9
Right.
wouldn't have been to see what could have happened
That's correct.
12, 15, 18, you know?
Right.
So,
And that's the story of life. If you taken one more step, you would have seen what was around the corner.
yeah.
But because you stop before you get there, and you later on you realize, oh man, if I'd taken that one step more, I would have gotten that opportunity. So you don't know. And the commitment is you can also set a time frame based upon what you're doing. You say, I'm going to give this 6 months. And one of the things that what I've tried to do is say to clients when they come on board, if you have a framework, which means a 3 or 4 page framework for your business, you're looking at that framework because now you spelled out everything. First of all, you sit down, you write out everything that you want this business to do. You write it down. If it comes up to 10, 20 pages, you say, now let me review it and try to get it narrative down to 3 or 4 pages. You have that, so as you go along, you're saying, am I on target for what I want to accomplish? You have those 3 or 4 pages, you look at it, yes, I'm on target. Now, do I want to change that target to a higher level? Yes, I'm ready to move that. Or I'm not in target, what do I need to get myself back on target? So if you have that written out, you see the scope of what you're trying to accomplish. So you review it every so often. And as I say, you say, well, I'm going to give this X amount. Because it tells you what you need, how much finances you need, what your business is going to look like, what your customer is going to be about, what your pricing structure is going to be, some of those things that you want to have. So you have a vision of what you're trying to accomplish. So you keep that in mind as you go along, and you keep revisiting it and seeing if you're on target or on track. And if you say, well, I give myself 6 months, and if it doesn't do this, then this is what I'm going to do. So you might say at 6 months, and if it's moving forward, you can say, you know what, I'm going to give this another month. And if it keeps moving forward, you can say, well, yes, I can keep moving forward. That time frame is like, no, this is not working out. And if you examine it, say, why is it not working out? And you examine your process and what you've done, then you'll be able to say, I haven't done enough to make this work. I need to recommit myself or look at this from a different perspective. And that's up to you. That's your commitment to what you want to do.
And that definitely is true. I know Alex Hermosi, I don't know if you heard of him, but he helps businesses grow essentially. And one thing that he mentioned is, let's say you're running ads, right? For your like Facebook ads for your business, and you're making 5 ads a week. And this guy comes to Alex and says, listen, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. They're not working out. What can I do to fix it?
Right.
He'll just simply ask, like, how many ads are you making a week? He's like, oh, 5. He goes, try 30. He's like, whoa. Then see what happens, right? Because with volume and just the more you go at it, then you get to see growth.
Absolutely. So,
and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank you again
You're
for
most
taking the
welcome.
time out of your day. I know you're a busy man.
Thank you. You're most welcome.
To sit down and do this interview with us.
Sure.
Is there anything you want to say to anybody in case they need an accountant or looking to get into this profession, perhaps?
Well, the profession is, I know that there's a lack of commitment in terms of the profession these days, because people think that the accounting profession is just, green shades and you're sitting at a desk all day and you're just doing data entry or stuff like that, or, basic stuff that doesn't have any quote unquote pizzazz or sexuality or sexiness to it. But it all depends on what you bring to the table as well. Because when I started out, I did not want to be the old stodgy, regular run-of-the-mill accountant. So I've developed a philosophy of being engaging and caring about our clients. So a lot of times people said over the years, you're in the wrong profession. You should either be a lawyer or a psychologist. And it's like, well, I'm in the right profession. Is I get to practice all those different things because I end up interacting with our clients and talking to them about their personal stuff. And sometimes that can seem, well, you're looking at, no, I'm not trying to make quote unquote friends, but I want our clients to feel comfortable that guess what, if they have something going on and they say, if I pick up the phone and call Michael, he's going to have a conversation with me. And it makes it easier for them to understand when I provide them with advice or have a conversation about what's going on, they're more willing to adapt to what I'm suggesting than, oh, he's just running the mill, stuck in the mud, accountant. But in terms of this, it's an excellent profession to be in. It gives you so many different options that you, when I studied, when we did back in the days, what we did was we did an analysis of what the profession has to offer. I don't remember the phraseology or the terminology that back then, but it gives you from being an accountant, a bookkeeper, a tax professional, an auditor, an analyst, even in finance, you have so many options, opportunities that you start and move in this. A manager, a CEO, CFO, all those different things come from the springs from it springs from the ability to study accounting and give you all those different options. So we don't just be stodgy old buddies, just green shades and just going at just numbers. We interpret those numbers, analyze them, and talk to people and advise them, because what we do to us makes a difference, just like for anybody else in the profession. So if you like the profession, one of the things that you asked me earlier about, not so much as a surprise, but we hired a young lady who's working downstairs in a cafe, had no experience, no knowledge about this. We brought her on board, and she went to school to become an industrial psychologist. That's where she was studying. Everybody's not going to do this, but she liked what she was doing. And one of the things I enjoy about her is that she's always asking questions. She's learning, she wants to understand, and it makes sense to her. And now she can say, well, I see how this works. It all interrelates. You start here, and it keeps going and going. Starting here, if you start here incorrectly, when you get there, it's going to be incorrect. So if you start here correctly, you have a strong foundation of what you're doing. It's done correctly, and you keep building, and you keep building. It interrelates. And having that understanding makes a big difference for some person who never saw this as a field that they wanted to get into. And now she's at a point where she's considering going to college and taking an accounting. And that's not going to happen to too many people. But I'm just saying the profession is wide open, and it's not a matter of simply sitting down doing data entry. You have to understand what you're doing and the reasons why you're doing what you do. There's an art to it, there's a rhyme, and there's a reason for what we do the way that we do what we do. And it makes sense once you start to understand it.